In the 1950s and 1960s, pearl-studded jewelry became a symbol of glamour and fame, worn by 20th-century celebrities like Coco Chanel, Jackie Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe. But the cultural significance of pearls goes back even further. In Roman art, giant figures can often be seen emerging from a shell or wearing pearl earrings. Hear the never-to-be-shared stories on the Drama Queen podcast. It is believed that even in the period of 5,000 years before Christ, pearls were searched for in many coastal places of the Indian Ocean. This craze established the oldest pearl trade corridor between India, Sri Lanka, Persian Gulf and Red Sea cities in ancient times. It was symbolized by the Greek goddess of love, Aphro, who was believed to have been born in the sea. In Roman art they are often seen emerging from a shell, sappy, or wearing pearl earrings. Such paintings have been found on the walls of Pompeii since the 1st century AD. Unparalleled beauty has long been associated with pearls in the history of art. In the Roman Empire, people were obsessed with pearls. Pliny the Elder, a 1st century BC writer, said that the value of the most precious things is determined by pearls. Some unusual burial paintings have been found in the Egyptian coastal city of Fayum, which was part of the Roman Empire. In them one can see the attachment of people to pearl necklaces and earrings. According to Suetonius, real pearls were so expensive in the 1st century AD that a Roman general sold some of his mother's pearls to raise money for military operations. He also claimed that the Roman invasion of Britain was motivated by the promise of finding pearls in the country's rivers. Holy sign. Even religions were shaped by pearls. From the parable of the pearl, in the Gospel of St. Matthew, it is known that there were pearl traders in the Roman world. Jesus compared pearls to heaven. It is written that the kingdom of war is like a merchant searching for the finest pearl. When he finds a pearl of great price, he goes back and sells all his possessions and buys it. Early Christian writers Ephraim al-Sariani, Origen and Clemens Alexander openly criticized those who treated them as ornaments and did not understand their true significance. In the late Middle Ages and the Renaissance, to highlight the purity of Jesus and Mary, works of art used to decorate them with unique crosses with pearls on them. When Paragrina pearls were first discovered in the Gulf of Panama in the early 16th century, pearls were associated with wealth, beauty and spiritual purity. It became the biggest example of this at the time. It was immediately sent to King Philip II of Spain, which gives an idea of the regional and political conditions of the Renaissance. Paragrina pearl. The world's most famous and expensive pearl that became a symbol of wealth and power. Matthew Wilson. It was the spring of 1969. There was chaos in the apartment on the highest floor of Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. Famous American actress Elizabeth Taylor's favorite piece of jewelry, i.e. an inch-long pearl, has suddenly disappeared. Richard Burton, husband of the actress, spent a lot of money for this pearl. The disappearing Paragrina pearl has been the most famous pearl in the history of the world. It is known for its volume, perfect shape and impressive base. Prior to Elizabeth Taylor, it was owned by the influential families of Motiporp and can be seen in paintings by renowned painters Peter Paul Rubens and Diego Velázquez. Elizabeth was on her knees and using her hands to scan every inch of the carpet in the flat, searching for the pearl, but to no avail. Then they noticed that their pet dog was chewing on something. He wrote in his book, Elizabeth Taylor, "My love affair with jewelry, that I just opened my dog's mouth and saw that there was the most perfect pearl in the world." The fascinating story of the Paragrina pearl helps us understand how important a role pearls have played in human civilization as a symbol of beauty, power and wealth. Elizabeth Taylor's photographs often feature her devotion to natural pearls. Queen Elizabeth of France. After the discoveries of Christopher Columbus in the late 1400s, Spanish conquests and colonization began in the New World. Indeed, One of his most important discoveries was the fascinating pearls of the new territories. Like the British intervention of the Roman Empire, America was a treasure trove of pearls for Spain, keeping in mind that the colonial era took place here. So when you see them wearing pearls in Roman portraits or seeing them with Paragrina pearls in numerous photos of Spanish royalty, it doesn't just show beauty or purity. It is also a sign of imperialism, which shows how wealth and power was extended from the colonized territories. An example of this is the Spanish Queen Margaret of Austria, Philip III's wife, who was painted by the painter La Cruz. In it, she is wearing a Paragrina pearl as an ornament. The same can be seen in the portrait of Queen Elizabeth of France, wife of Philip IV. The Paragrina pearl became the jewel of the Spanish royal crown, and the symbol was worn by subsequent generations. It has been named the most valuable treasure of the Spanish crown several times. King Philip IV of Spain wore this pearl in his hat on the occasion of his daughter's wedding. Jewelry such as Paragrina pearls were a sign of the luxurious life of the ladies of the royal family. In these pictures, these women looked formal and less impressive. This was because there were certain rules in Spanish courts, such as that people in the photograph could be seen in a limited way and they could not show a smile. Some pearls were sent back to their former location, such as La Pellegrina, which is similar in size to La Paragrina and was initially owned by every Spanish royal family. One such pearl belonged to Queen Mary I of Great Britain in the mid-1500s. Actresses Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton believe she even had a photograph in which she can be seen wearing La Paragrina. The most famous pearl in art history can be seen in Vermeer's 1665 painting, Girl with a Pearl Earring. But it is unlikely that Vermeer, who belonged to the poor class, could have had access to this pearl even from such a distance. It is likely that the pearl was imaginary or an imitation of a glass pearl. Vermeer often depicted pearls in his paintings. It was considered a sign of wealth and status. However, it sometimes had religious references. As shown in the picture, allegory of the Catholic faith, pearls are symbols of holy faith. He himself was a Catholic, but at that time Protestant Christians were the majority in the country. The original La Paragrina was owned by the Spanish royal family until the 1800s. In 1808, Napoleon intervened in his country and installed his brother Joseph Bonaparte on the throne. When the French were expelled from Spain in 1813, Joseph brought the pearl with him to France and gave it to his mother-in-law. It was inherited by Napoleon III, who became ruler of France in the mid-1800s. Napoleon III sold it to a British citizen, James Hilton, Duke of Abercorn, to increase his wealth. His wife also had incidents like Elizabeth Taylor disappearing during social gatherings. It was once found among the sofa cushions at Buckingham Palace. It remained in his possession until 1969 when Richard Burton bought it. Elizabeth Taylor took it out of her pet dog's mouth, and it has been one of her prized jewels ever since. The Paragrina pearl was once seen as a symbol of the luxurious life when it appeared around Elizabeth Taylor's neck in photographs, most notably in the film Anne of a Thousand Days 1969. After Elizabeth Taylor's death in December 2011, it was sold to an undisclosed buyer for $11.8 million. On average, only one oyster or musk fish in 10,000 produces a medium-sized pearl. The chances of finding a pearl like the Paragrina pearl are very low. His name means wandering traveler. Perhaps this is the reason why it came out of the Gulf of Panama and remained with some of the most famous figures in the history of the world. This shows how important pearls have been to people over time. Pearl is not just an ornament. They also represent to us imperialism, wealth, spiritual purity and beauty.